Peace, peace. This your host, Selah Shalom, and this is the Cosmon Teachings in the words of Jehovah and his angel ambassadors from the Cosmon Bible Owaspi. And the topic of discussion today is the introduction to the life, death, and resurrection of Zarathustra, the lawgiver. Zarathustra was a Persian lawgiver who lived during the 22nd arc cycle after the creation of man, the Ark of Lu. And the Etherian god of the 22nd arc cycle was the Etherian god Fragapati. And the length of the 22nd arc cycle is 2,400 years, from 7053 BC to 3953 BC. This is the time period that the Zarathustrian religion prospered. The furthest back of all historical characters, both Buddhist and Christian religions are said to be made up chiefly from the history and miracles of Zarathustra. It was to obliterate such history that Cotilius, a Christian priest, burned the Alexandria Library in the year 390 AD, and for the same purpose and more effectively did three Christian monks again burn it in the year 640 AD. Zarathustra was of enormous size and of neither sex, being an Aisu. Now the term Aisu, this term is a title bestowed on men who are born of neither gender, who has no earthly desires and is passionless from birth. And an example of this is in the book of God's Word, chapter 2, verse 7. It states how Zarathustra is an Aisu born. Verse 7. Not the child, but I, even Ahumazda. Think not, O man, these small lips are the words prompted by this child's soul. I am come to slay the cruel hand of war, to make man know there is an unseen master. Behold, this child hath no sex. He is an Aisu, a passionless birth. So here the term Aisu refers to a passionless birth, meaning no earthly desires, and where the child is neither sex. Now during the time of Constantine, when the Nancy Creed compiled the ancient stories from the Sumerians, Egyptians, and Hebrews to give us the Bible, the term Aisu was adopted by the Nancy Creed, and this is where the name Jesus comes from, the title Aisu. Now in God's book of Esra, chapter 48, verse 50 through 51, it states, Constantine said, the gods will not let us choose any man. Now therefore, hear me, all the lawgivers chosen by gods have been Aisu. Now since we cannot make preference as to man, let us say the man Aisu. Verse 51. Thereupon the name Aisu was adopted, and the sacred books were written accordingly. So here it shows how Constantine used the term Aisu to represent the character for the New Testament Jesus. And the story of Jesus is a combination from the miracles of Zarathustra and mainly the story of Yeshua. Now in the book of Fragapati, son of Jehovah, chapter 2, verse 6, 12 through 20, it states, verse 6, and it is 3,100 years since great Osiris sowed the seed of mental culture amongst mortals, and it hath grown to be a giant and a most merciless tyrant, to learn whereof I speak, even God and his lords, to honor thee, O Fragapati. Give me voice and word, and open the libraries of their heavens, and accompany me around about the earth to all the nations, tribes, and wanderers. To me the God of the earth said, verse 12, for the seed of corporeal knowledge had taken root in the Ahuan race. They had learned the motions, the names and places of the stars, the moon, and the sun, and from these prophesied the affairs of nations and men, and duly marked out with maps and charts the destiny of things according to the dates of corporeal births and movements, attributing the high central cause to the sun and stars in conjunction. Verse 13. And thus they cast aside all spirits, even Jehovah, reasoning that if the sun made winter and summer and grass to grow and die, so it rules over animals and men, and so the temples built to observe the stars before which men once fell down and worshiped Jehovah became the place of decrees to horrid deaths of all who taught or believed in spirit. So here it shows how the knowledge that Osiris laid down, being the study of physical science, man became forgetful of the spirit life and made decrees against anyone confessing to hear and see spirits. And in verse 14 it states, "And now arose a mighty nation on earth of the Ahuans, and called Persia, and they ignored the decrees of gods and lords to build no city larger than 2,000 souls, declaring the lords and gods to be but inspirations from the quickening powers of the sun and stars, made dark and personal by the credibility of past ages." Verse 15. "And so, in representation of the solar Felix, they built Os, a sun city, which stands to this day of 1,000,000 souls, sworn to make it the central government over all the earth, and all other places tributary and paying for its glory. And over Os they made a king, and they called him King of the Sun, to be to him and his heirs successors forever." As you see this is the same mind frame of the world bankers today, to make a one world government and all other nations pay tribute to this one world government. And the Sun King will be equivalent to the Antichrist. So here, over 8,000 years ago, these things were being carried out. And verse 16 states, "And Os was embellished and adorned above all other places that had been on the earth, the fame of which spread abroad over Japheth and Shem and Ham, between which it lies centrally. Its colleges became famous, and its observations were of such magnitude that their roofs were covered with silver and gold. The mirrors and lens in dark chambers within the towers were so constructed that the stars could be read as well in the day as at night, and the records of observation covered more than 1,000 years by men of great learning." Verse 17. "But now Os inspired not only to be the central sun in knowledge, but in power and dominion over the whole earth, and so from her ample treasures she sendeth forth armies to conquer and destroy, to gather and plunder, to build still greater her magnificence." Verse 18. "So Japheth, Shem, and Ham ran red with human blood, whereat I raised my voice to high heaven that Jehovah would send deliverance for the souls of man." So here it shows how all nations pay tribute to the Sun Kingdom, and it described the Sun Kingdom being covered with silver and gold, chambers and towers for observation, with recorded information of the sun, moon, and stars going back over 1,000 years. And it also stated how the armies of the Sun Kingdoms went out to conquer over other nations, to bring back the goods to the Sun Kingdom. So here you have these great nations and wars going down over 8,000 years ago. And verse 20 states, "God said, So the heavens of the earth have fallen to the earth, except the Ions and the far-off Ahuans, whose spirits my lords gathered in and prepared for the after resurrection. But amongst the Persian nation none more believe the dead shall rise, nor that spirit is, but that with the mortal death there is the end, to which the king hath made a decree that nevermore shall man teach or preach of a heaven for spirits of the dead, nor proclaim a great spirit, a creator." So here the Persians issued edicts that man shall not speak of anything concerning the spirit life, and with the physical death that was the ending of life, and this was the belief and condition at the time of the birth of Zarathustra, 7053 BC. And in the book of Fragapati, son of Jehovah, chapter 5, verse 9 through 12, it states, Fragapati said, "That thou, O God, mayst know my decree, I commanded thee and thy lords and thy exalted hosts hither. Hear me then, and to whom I send thee. Do thou my commandment in the name of Jehovah. The time hath come when mortals on the earth shall begin their lessons in spiritual things proven, being themselves made part in the building of Jehovah's kingdom. So here is the 22nd Ethereum God Fragapatty